SpaceX are tearing up the rule book in spaceflight, making the big space companies look old and unfit to compete, advancing space technologies that change the paradigm like reusability, and dreaming big with their Starship rocket that, if successful, puts us into yet another paradigm. Now, Musk's already said he now wants to send at least one flight to Mars in every possible future Mars launch window. So, could SpaceX put humans on Mars next year? Stick around and we'll find out. Okay, so the simple answer is no, because 2022 is a Mars launch year and Earth and Mars align to make an efficient trip to Mars every 780 days, so a little over 2 years. So the next launch window isn't until 2024, so technically they couldn't. But in theory, with a concerted effort, SpaceX could human rate their Falcon Heavy rocket, put together a landing system and send 63 tons to Mars, surely enough to put footprints on the surface. Now, of course, anyone who's following SpaceX closely knows that Musk isn't in the market for human rating Falcon Heavies now that he's devised and is building SpaceX's new fully reusable mega rocket, Starship. But whether that could be built, tested and certified for human crews next year, well, there are many more considerations than just the rocket. This whole exploring space stuff is kind of very similar to people climbing Everest. There's no logical reason to do it. People go to the Arctic, but there's no profitable reason to do that. But you know, Mars is just a whole class above that. While the air is almost too thin to breathe at the summit of Mount Everest, at least there is air to breathe, and in the Arctic. Both attract professional explorers and now ambitious amateurs and TV crews. But in many ways, a mission to Mars would be in a similar category to the Antarctica expeditions of the late 19th century, because actually we could get there, even with existing technology. And you know, ships in the late 19th century could get to Antarctica. They could put people onto the coast of the continent of Antarctica. You probably wouldn't want to stay very long, and you certainly didn't have the clothing, the materials and equipment to do any kind of extended exploration or stay. It's just so inhospitable. And the number of people who died or were seriously injured doing early Antarctic exploration showed just how highly dangerous it was. You know, we didn't properly explore Antarctica until after World War II, when we had aircraft and the vehicles and the technology that allowed us to do it and not die. So we're in a similar position with Mars now, where we could send a rocket tomorrow. We could, you know, essentially, if we put our backs in, we could actually launch people to Mars next year. We have spacesuits that you could step out onto the Martian surface in. We might even be able to put a habitation module on a beefed up version of the Sky Crane that put the last 2 NASA rovers on the surface of Mars. We could put a mission together. We have the rocketry to do it. We've also got people who would go, but they would die. It would literally be like those early Antarctic missions. It'd all be very brave and noble, and you know, you'd probably plant your flag on the surface, but you'd stay with it. At best, you'd have a good couple of weeks surviving on the Martian surface, assuming none of the million systems and subsystems to keep you alive failed, and no one got sick in the 9 months it would take to get there. It would be the first human landing attempt on a planet 100 million miles away, where you can't even get help from mission control during landing, because it takes 12 minutes for your radio message travelling at the speed of light to reach Earth, and then another 12 minutes to get the reply. That's just how far away it is. It's crazy. Bear in mind that NASA call the entry, descent and landing phase of a Mars mission 7 minutes of terror, because the nerve-wracking sequence happens faster than radio signals can reach Earth from Mars. So you're on your own if you need to correct, repair or reconfigure anything at the time that you're blazing through Mars's atmosphere at 19,000 miles an hour, hoping your heat shield is up to it at 2,700 degrees Fahrenheit. So you'd be able to put those first historic footprints on the Martian dust next year if all the systems work to get you there. But you would die there, as it would take a lot longer to devise, build and test a habitat to sustain you for 3 months while you wait for an Earth and Mars line up in their orbits for a trip back. And you don't have a system to get you back off Mars and return to Earth, and your food would run out. And I sound quite blasé about this, but this is the reality right now as I record this, that if anyone went to Mars with the technology that we have today, they would die there. Now, I suspect there are people getting ready to yell at me or switch this video off because obviously SpaceX are fixing this, right? Well, even Musk himself said that he kind of equated it to the kind of Shackleton adventures.
Going to Mars reads like that ad for Shackleton going to the Antarctic. You know, it's dangerous, it's uncomfortable, it's a long journey. You might not, come back alive, but it's a glorious adventure, and it'll be amazing. An amazing experience.
And your name will go in history.
Yes, you might die. It's going to be uncomfortable, and you probably won't have good food, and all these things, So if an arduous and dangerous journey where you may not come back alive, but it's a glorious adventure, sounds appealing.
And
Mars is the place.
And you still have thousands of volunteers, if not millions of volunteers, who would want to go.
I mean, honestly, a bunch of people probably will die in the beginning. It's tough sledding over there.
We're an exploring species.
Yeah, exactly. Not for everyone. We don't want to make anyone go, so it's like, it's volunteers only.
It's something that people are going to find very exciting, but people will very likely die, especially in the early days of this adventure of going to Mars. But Musk knows that there will still be plenty of people that will not only want to go despite the fact that, there's a good chance they'll die, but they'll even pay for the privilege as well, which of course raises its own ethical debate, because people can't sell you things that they know have a good chance of killing you. Okay, guns and cigarettes, but there are hard-baked historical attachments that mean they can still be sold. But try getting a new type of bread with a hit of cocaine or strychnine past the FDA or Food Standards Agency. But when we set our mind to something, as a civilization, we solve it. We solve the problem. So eventually, it's typical humanity. We climbed Everest before we should have ever climbed Everest, before we had the right to climb Everest. We went to the moon before, technologically, we should have been able to go to the moon. It's just what we do as humans. We always want to get there at the moment we think we can, which is when it's most hazardous and dangerous. If we can't survive on the moon with 2020's technology for an extended period of time, there is no way that we are ready to go to Mars, which is just another level of complexity and difficulty. So we might see some hops to Mars in the next 10 years, like we had some hops to the moon. Probably some uncrewed Starship flights to Mars in the next couple of launch windows in 2024 and 2026, maybe to send NASA probes to its 2 moons. But I think permanent habitation on Mars is something that's sadly a long, long way off yet. God, who wants to go out on a downer? But at least it's not as depressing as all the delicious ways that Mars will try and kill those NASA and SpaceX crews when they do finally get there. And if you're watching in the future, you'll want to check out that awesome video here.